Hey there everybody, it's Mark Crilley. I'm back with another How to Draw video. This is part 2 in a 2-part series on how to draw someone riding a bicycle. As you can see, last week I focused on the pose. This time we are going to look at the bicycle itself and all the details, all the seemingly endless details that it contains. I'm going to refocus the camera so that we can get into it. Okay, so let's begin by getting this front section, which I believe is called the fork, the part of the bike that, of course, connects these handlebars with the front tire. Okay, so you can see, and I had never really noticed this, every time I try to draw a bicycle from memory, I always imagined that this front part here was more vertical in orientation. I never really noticed that it actually leans back a bit. But what's interesting to me is even leaning back a bit, it needs apparently to also bend down here so as to be at a proper angle for holding the wheel in place. And since we're drawing this tire, the whole bike, in a sort of three-quarter point of view, we're actually seeing both sides of the fork there. Well, I guess we might as well go ahead then and draw the wheel and maybe the mud guard fender on top of the wheel. Okay, so of course, I had to make a choice in terms of what type of bicycle I was going to teach in this lesson, and sadly, there are just so many different types that no single video could cover all of them. But this is an old-fashioned type of bicycle that I find visually appealing, and is in fact quite common in Japan, since we've sort of taken this Japanese theme with this video. In any case, notice that the mud guard, the fender, starts up here. I would say sort of like if you go diagonally across that initial square, it's going to be just a little to the right of that diagonal. And then stopping really right down here after you get just past. I was surprised actually to notice how far down it goes, but of course it's trying to stop the mud from splashing up, so I guess it needs to go up pretty high. In any case, this support structure that keeps that in place is very much horizontal right here, going neatly right across that line, and then just a little diagonal to the left there. Supporting on that side. Of course, again, mountain bikes don't even have mud guards because the people who ride them are too tough to want to stay clean while they're bike riding. That's half the fun, man, getting splashed with the mud. In any case, hopefully that tells you everything you need to know about that. I'm going to come back and in real time maybe do more about drawing the actual tire. But, as you can see, even for me, a bit of a challenge to make sure it's of an even width all the way around. Hopefully I can sort of tweak that before we go to final. In any case, let's move on now and start drawing what for me has always been a challenge. These bars, I guess they're called tubes, that hold the front and back part of the bike together. All right, so again, different designs, are going to come up with different configurations of lines here, but certainly, traditionally, the woman's bike has this, what do they call this? I got a top tube, I think it's called, much, much lower than on the men's bike, going probably more or less horizontally straight across, but I suppose that was the woman's bike was designed traditionally for long skirts and so forth to leave space open there. But I found at least one company had this interesting design where there was a gentle curve this way and then sort of a opposite curve on the bottom bar. But I sort of liked the look of that, and so that's what I did. And here we have, I believe, the seat tube. Again, as I said, I believe last week, parallel, tilting back. What did I call it? The Leaning Tower of Pisa tilt that this part of the bike has. Again, I had always imagined just straight up and down, but that is not the case. And so now let's go ahead and start getting into, well, I'll do the same thing. I'll go ahead and draw this sort of fork-like support structure back here, and then maybe just go ahead and draw the tire and see if I can point out any differences between the two. Okay, so you can see that actually this mud guard, or fender, I keep not knowing which one to call it, is actually in a rather different position from this one. Another thing that I had not noticed, with it starting a little bit above that line, here you can see that it comes down below, and then really curves all the way down so as, again, presumably to stop the mud from splattering onto the person riding the bike. Notice that the support structure here, this one, you know, if it was a clock, I guess it would be like 2 o'clock on that one, and this one just a little bit close to 12 noon as I try to turn this into a time-telling device. Of course, it's very common to have some sort of a rack back here. I decided enough, you know, we got plenty of details to deal with as it is, and I thought I would just skip that part. But notice, and this is going to come into play with the tires as well, that, you know, when you turn something in a slightly three-quarter point of view here, you're seeing more of the front of the mud guard here, and as it turns away from you, just seeing more of a sliver of it. And yes, when we do the tires, the rim of the tire is going to kind of do the same sort of a thing. I think now, well, let's get into some of the mechanics down here of the, what did I say that was, the chain ring. Oh, you know what, why don't we, you know, in real time, I'll go ahead and get the pedal, because it looks weird, her head. She's got a foot that's resting on nothing. Let's go ahead and get this pedal in place. And I do believe that, you know, pedals are made so that they can turn and allow the foot to be at any angle you want it to be at. And that's why, you know, basically, yeah, I can almost get away with drawing the foot first and then drawing the pedal, because the pedal can move in relation to the foot. But then down here, again, trying my best to do sort of a three-quarter point of view on this pedal. One thing that you can't really see, because I haven't drawn it yet, is the support structure of the pedal. What is it, like the crankshaft or something like that? Well, here, I'll go ahead and I'll finish this off and sort of explain what I mean by this. All right, so I wanted to point out that these, for the pedals, these bars have to be pointing in exactly the same direction, these two, right? That they are sort of related to each other, and as it turns, they stay constantly in the same direction. Notice that it was time for me to bring this bar. I got a little confused, even doing this lesson, I got confused. This support bar comes in front of the, what did we call this thing? Chain ring? And that gets pushed back to the other side of the bike. So yeah, you know, even having studied it, I'm still getting a little confused. These so many different moving parts. Well, let's knock it off with the time lapse. I'm going to go ahead and put in, and oh, how am I going to know the name for this one? The chain guarding thing. Chain guard? Does that work? I hope it does. Let's go ahead and have this, you know, this is really, like I said, sort of a cog, this chain ring, and it holds, as you might expect, the chain. Oh my goodness, it holds a chain. And that goes back across there. And I think the upper one you would normally see, except that there's this chain guard that's covering it, again, so that, you know, clothing and so forth doesn't get caught in the upper part of the chain. I guess the lower part of the chain is far enough away. And again, I'm erasing here. I should have got that on the other side. You know, you have to pay attention to what's on one side and what's on the other. The chain is only on one side of the bike. Do as I say, not as I do. So this, yeah, here I guess I can go ahead and sort of try to suggest that this is actually a chain. And those of you who have had your chain pop off of your bike, you know exactly what this is, because you've had to get off the bike and try to get this thing back on here. Now, different companies create different designs for this chain ring. I'm going to make it, as I said, sort of look like a cog, a traditional cog in the machinery, which is to say it has a bunch of these little struts, support pieces here that hold it together. Hold it together, man. And yeah, we're getting closer to the end of the details. I suppose before I do the spokes, I am going to try to get the rim of the bicycle tire in place. I don't know if I'm going to... I'll do one of these real time. As I said, because it's in a 2/3 or a 3/4 point of view, a 2/3 point of view. I'm inventing new points of view. A three-quarter point of view causes us to see the front part of the rim, just a sliver of it, and then over here it becomes much more visible, and conversely the tire becomes less visible. So, you know, getting this line in its proper place will go a long way towards getting the tire to read properly. And, you know, you can see me sort of struggling to maintain this series of circles. You know, I hear from people saying, man, I can't draw a perfect circle. And I'm like, well, I hear you. I can't draw a perfect circle either. The human hand was not designed for making perfect circles, and at least mine isn't. And you just have to keep working at it little by little and hoping that you're getting somewhere within range. So you can see basically what I did there, keeping it very thin on this side, fattening it out on the other side. I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing on the other tire. All right, well, we're almost ready to get to the spokes. Before I do that, though, I want to sort of add a little more definition to this seat or saddle, and note that there is sort of like these mechanisms down here for adjusting the height. I admit I'm just sort of winging it at this stage, but very often you will see a spring back here, sort of shock absorber, to shield the bike rider from the bumps of the road. And again, I don't know if I'm getting this exactly right, but it's sort of nice to have a little extra bit of detail there that hopefully lends an air of authenticity. Just an air of not actual authenticity. But basically, yeah, let's go ahead and do these spokes. Now, drawing the spokes is quite a challenge because they don't, you know, we imagine them all just like sort of the hands of a clock being perfectly laid out that way, but they really aren't. And one thing you can count on is that where the spokes attach to the inside of the rim, you know, which again in this three-quarter point of view we can see quite clearly, where they attach is very evenly spaced. And you know, I don't know if I can come up with any rule of thumb for that, but you can sort of see that I'm dropping one in every so often. I can't think of exactly in it because I haven't counted, you know, how many dots there are. I'm just not quite that committed, folks. But having got those dots into place, this is where it gets tricky. And what I want to do is just be maybe a little bit impressionistic about it because, you know, like I was saying, you sort of imagine 1, 2, 3, and they all go neatly into that center. But that really is not the case. When you look at photos of bicycles, they're sort of pointing in slightly unusual directions, and they will overlap one another, these spokes will. And my feeling is maybe you can get away with suggesting the presence of these spokes without, you know, like I'm not even having the line connect all the way. Like I said, going a little impressionist here with the way I draw the spokes. I think it really, you know, it may seem a little lazy, but actually I think you'll drive yourself insane if you look at photos and try to represent the actual angles of all these spokes. It really is quite at least for me, it just seems a very tall order to keep track of where all those lines are going. And I don't think the person looking at your illustration is going to be, you know, holding it to that high of a standard. So anyway, you get the idea of how I'm doing this. I'm going to go ahead and do the spokes on the front tire the same way. And that basically does it. I think I'll just add just a little reflector back here for safety purposes. And I'm going to reshift the focus here so as to draw a little basket up here that she can have her groceries in or whatever. I love when a bicycle has one of those. So let's go ahead and draw that. Okay, so you can see that it sort of obscures some of the work that I had drawn earlier. Sadly, I have to erase yet again. And actually, the more I think about it, this probably, if it were to be centered properly, it would come even further out in front, wouldn't it? I'm trying to think this through logically. Come on, Crilley. Keep it together. And I want to do the classic, almost stereotype of the baguette. You've got to have a French baguette in the front as you're riding home from the boulangerie. Pardon my terrible French pronunciation. How about a bottle of wine? Should probably have flowers in there. What are all the other stereotypical things that you want to see somebody have? I'll go ahead and put just a little indication of flowers here in the front as she cycles home from her afternoon errands. I think putting a few markings here will make that look a little more like a baguette. And I thought, wouldn't it be cute if she had a ribbon here that matches her hair? In fact, she bought the bicycle to match her hair. When I add coloring later on, you will see that I basically stick to this exact same color scheme, so everything will be either a shade of the yellow or a shade of these browns. Very much, she's very into matching. She doesn't go anywhere without a matching bicycle. And then, yeah, I'm not going to make this so much about how to draw a basket. We're getting well away from the topic at hand for this video. Let me go ahead and finish up these lines in time-lapse. Okay, well, I believe that brings us at last to the finished line work, and I'm going to refocus and pull out the trusty black Prismacolor. This time, assuming that anyone watching this video saw last week's video, I'm just going to go straight into the marker once I'm done with the black Prismacolor line work, and then we'll be back with a few final words. Alright, well, I decided to bring out a sort of yellow-orange pencil here just to add a little more shading to the pale yellow sections of the illustration. And it may or may not be just a coincidence that this is the perfect shade for adding yellow-orange blushes. That must be a first in the history of my Crilley videos. Hang on, I'm going to go grab my books. Always like to thank those who have supported me by getting any of my books, like Brody's Ghost, Book 6. This is it, the completion of the story, out there and available at Amazon and elsewhere. Miki Falls, my other graphic novel series, as well as Mastering Manga and Mastering Manga 2, and coming out very soon indeed, May 5th, the Realism Challenge. I'll be saying more about that in the weeks ahead, but let me go ahead and lay down this yellow-orange pencil. I want to thank all of you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. And I'll be back with another one real soon.